Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome back to my channel for those of you who have been here for a little bit, and welcome to all of you who found this video not by accident. I know it's because the divine has a message for you. What I was guided to talk about in this particular video is touching on the full moon in Aries that we just had a few days back. And I do want to say, even though it is, talking about those energies, if we're way past the full moon in Aries, don't click off. I mean, because this is a timeless message, but it is especially relevant at this time. And also with the sun as it traverses and transits through Libra, it's especially relevant as well, because of course Libra is our relationships, how we move in our relationships, how we relate to others, as well as the law of cause and effect that tells us that all of our decisions and choices determine the timeline that we end up on, and the decisions and choices that were made in the past kind of determine where we are now, in addition to relationships and all of those other good things that Libra represents in its alchemy. The full moon in Aries, if you remember that teaching or go back to it if you didn't watch that, it points us to really excavating our authentic self. And Aries, its key phrase is I am. So it helps us to kind of reinvent, or maybe not reinvent, but take another look at who we are and the perception filters through which we look at ourselves and our lives, and as a result, how that causes us to move, or as the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And one of the reasons why I am coming in with this message is we are positioned for an entirely new cycle in 2026. It is a universal 1 year. That means the cycle that opened up for us in 2017 is coming to a close. And with that, what I was seeing in the spirit for many of the chosen earth angels, starseeds, whatever term you use, right? It's all kind of one and the same to me. Is that we were running a race. The vision that they were giving me is us running a race to this finish line and then being cut in. And the verse from the Bible, and, bear with me because I do quote from the Bible a lot. I do have a Christian background, even though I don't consider myself to be a Christian. I consider myself to be maybe like a multi-dimensional Christian at this point. But one of the verses from the Bible that came up for me is when Paul, I think he was talking to the Ephesians or somebody, he asked them, who cut in on you and kept you from finishing the race? And one of the warnings that the divine wanted me to bring in, not to scare you, but to help you to reflect and in your own healing journey to kind of check this and see where this might be going on, is there is a lot of warfare and there is a lot of relationships that are being animated. A lot of us have been targeted by dark witch and warlock energy through the narcissistic program or the false twin flame energies or whatever the case may be. And these are people who are seeking to keep us stuck so that they continue to harvest off of our energy because they have attachments or whatever the case may be. And this is where going back and healing the people-pleasing template is so incredibly important, because one of the aspects of people-pleasing is our inability to say no, and our inability to really determine what it is that we want and need in a given situation. Many of us in our relationships, we have been conditioned going back to childhood to put our needs and our wants way over there so that we can be present to help heal, fix, or be present or love on whoever it is in front of us and whatever it is that they want and demand. But I do want you to remember that, when you watch vampire movies, and I guess, it's Halloween season, so this conversation is relevant. In vampire movies, the vampire has to be invited in order to come into your life and start wreaking havoc. And this is very true for those in our lives who have malicious intent. They're being directed by lower dimensional beings in consciousness fields and intelligences. They need your consent in order to come into your life, whether this is an actual person or whether this is an energy or an intelligence. They need you to agree with it, whether in word or in deed. So how this plays out in your life is you may have somebody who is a narcissist. They drain your energy. That they're dark, but you keep inviting them them into your home. You keep engaging with them. You keep allowing them to love bomb you and hoover you back into some situationship with them. And you consent to it through your actions and your deeds. It's very important that we heal and be done and completed with any programs and conditioning around this, because this is where we can get stuck. And instead of moving into a new cycle in 2026, we have to repeat an old cycle with whoever this situation is. Because remember, the timeline that we end up on is determined by the actions and decisions that we make in the now moment. So healing and clearing and purifying out of this energy is of the essence at this time. And this is where it becomes challenging, because for those of us as the chosen, we are also breaking generational curses. So we've come in through these family lineages, of generations of toxicity and dysfunction and narcissism, where we've been conditioned and programmed to make ourselves disappear, to erase ourselves. And with that, what we truly want and need, we've learned how to sort of bow down to the projections of others or the desires of others or the agenda of others. And this is how we stay in a false reality, by remaining that supporting actor in somebody else's story through the energy of consent. This is how we continue to have our energy siphoned and harvested through these dynamics. So it's very important for us to go in and heal and clear these energies out, so that we can start moving into position with the new timelines that are coming into and for us at this time. I think it's really interesting. For those of you who have a Christian background, the huge spiritual warfare verse in the Bible is, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And then it talks about the full armor of God, and it talks about the sword of truth. And of all the pieces in that armor, and all of the pieces of the armor are very symbolic, the sword of truth is the only defense that we have. It is what we have to slay that dragon in front of us, and it requires us to be in our truth and in alignment. So anytime we're feeling a no, but we say yes, we come out of alignment, and that sword of truth is pulled out of our hands. This is what we have to slay those dragons, to slay those entities, to slay, quote unquote, slay the narcissist. And narcissists basically are people who have a demonic attachment. Narcissism is a consciousness field. It's a fallen consciousness field. So when we are in alignment with our truth and we are in our integrity, this is huge in being able to overcome and have victory against these energies that seek to come in and subdue us. So if you are, one of these types of people, I know for me, I did have an experience in a long-term relationship with a malignant narcissist that was harvesting my energy big time. And I noticed that when it was time for me to take action to get this person out of my life and removed off my timeline, my first default was starting to think about them. I was like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because that's going to hurt them. And I don't want to see them suffer. And I don't want to see them go through this and da-da-da-da. And in doing that, what I was doing is I was negating the self. I was abandoning myself. That's all Aries energy, and it's, negative polarity in Libra, so that I could put this person in front of me and continue to agree to their bullshit. But once I got to the point where I had to pull it back and pull back my power, I'm like, okay, well, they might go through this, but I have to stop caring about what they think or how this is going to affect them, because I am the most important person in my life and in my timeline. And it's interesting, this very same person would always, whenever they would demand something of me that involved me getting involved in their energy, they would never take a vague answer. Like if I said, oh, no, I have to think about it, or I'm not sure, and blah, blah, blah. They would always want me to answer yes or no. I mean, they were very demanding about it. They would just kind of, push away what I was saying, and they would repeat themselves and say yes or no. And in this way, it was that entity trying to get consent out of me by saying yes or no, so that it could continue to bind itself to my life and keep me stuck in a false reality. So I'm saying all of this because if you are somebody who really struggles with this and really struggles with being able to say yes and say no, and feeling guilty when you say no, or putting somebody else first, or knowing somebody is dangerous for your life or for your energy, but they pull on your heartstrings, they weaponize your desire to have harmonious relationships and use it against you to keep you stuck in some crazy fuck shit. It is really time for us to really heal those at a very deep level. So I wanted to bring this message in. I hope that this is something that you can take away, or there's something here that you can take away to really kind of implement healing and focusing on this as part of your own healing journey, so that you can move into victory, so that you can move into the highest timeline set that is available for you moving forward. That's it for now. I hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless, and I'll be back in touch again soon. Bye bye.